Mike Raver, CombatGunfighting.com. I want to talk to you about the difference between target shooting and combat shooting, and point shooting is combat shooting. There's a huge difference between take a deep breath in, let it half out, slowly squeeze the trigger until the round goes off as a surprise to you, versus the realities of the street where somebody's trying to stick a knife in you or rob you from a couple of feet away. It doesn't translate well at all. I've watched tens of thousands of Austin raw shootings caught on tape, going all the way back to the 1980s when we had VHS recorders in the trunks of our cars. I've talked to over 300 police officers that have been involved with shooting, with some of them being involved in multiple shootings. Some will say they remember seeing their sights. I had one officer tell me he was with a partner. They went up to the second floor of our apartment. It was a one family converted to a two family, so the stairs were kind of steep. And they went to the second floor, they knocked on the door, served a warrant. It was a minor warrant. The door swings open. The guy's got a stick, large stick. He hits the one officer over the head, knocks him unconscious. The officer tumbles down the stairs. The officer I was talking to said, I didn't know if the guy was dead or alive. I drew my firearm out as the guy raised his stick to hit me. So I put my off arm up to try to protect my head a little bit, and I drew my firearm out, and I fired 2 rounds at the bad guy before he was able to hit me with the stick. So I said, let me give you my red gun, training gun, and we'll go on the stairs in the back of the building where I was teaching. And the stairs, the angle wasn't correct, and the lighting obviously wasn't correct, but we had the distances down pretty good. And I said, I want you to take the red gun and pretend it was that night, and how you draw your firearm, exactly how you drew your firearm out that night. And he said, well, the guy swung the stick up the second time. He said, I put my arm up and I drew my firearm out, and I remember seeing my sights and firing 2 rounds into the bad guy. I said, well, let me ask you this. Don't move any part of your body. The only thing I want you to do is, when I tell you to, is to move your head and look at your gun. And I said, go ahead and do it, go ahead and do it. And he looked down at this gun, and he looked up at me, he looked down at this gun, he looked up at me, and he did that several times because he couldn't believe it sunk in that he didn't see his sights. He said, but I remember seeing them. I said, well, the mind plays tricks on you under high stress situations. You thought you saw your sights, you thought you used your training, which we say out there, I referred it back to my training, but you realized it was impossible to do that. Another officer, back before we had night sights, the officer chased the bad guy, who was a murder suspect, into the building. It was a high-rise apartment complex. And he said, we were in total darkness. And every time the bad guy shot, I shot at the muzzle flash. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see my gun. I couldn't see him. It's very rare that we're in total darkness. But he said, this basement, I just ran in from the outside, the bright sunlight, into the darkness, and there was nothing. I didn't have a flashlight or nothing, and I couldn't see, so I just shot at the muzzle flash. Some officers will say, I remember seeing my sights, like that officer on the stairs with the bad guy with the stick. So if I don't have a red gun, if I'm not there with them, I'll have them do the simple drill, and you can do this simple drill or exercise wherever you're at. If you're sitting in your office or your living room, pick on an object on the wall, whether it's a light switch or doorknob, whatever it is, and point your finger at it. Focus on that object on the wall, the light switch or the doorknob. Your finger is a little blurry, right? Now I want you to shift your focus from that light switch or doorknob to your finger. Right, look at your finger now. Have that in focus. The light switch, the doorknob, really blurry. We're seeing 2 of them. A lot of us will see 2 of them. It's because the human eye cannot focus on 2 objects at 2 different distances at the same time. It's physically impossible to do. So either the bad guy's in focus or your gun is in focus. I can tell you right now, the bad guy is always in focus. I've never had one person tell me the bad guy was blurry or I was seeing 2 bad guys, but I could see my gun, see my sights clearly. It doesn't happen that way. The bad guy is always in focus. So much so that I've had officers tell me they can count the rounds in the cylinder of a revolver. I saw a ripped button on a shirt. For some reason that stuck out to me, but I could see from 15 feet away, I could see the ripped button on a shirt. As police officers, we interviewed victims of an armed robbery. Could you describe the firearm to us. It was a cannon. It was huge. Stuck it right in my face. I thought I was going to die. You catch the perpetrator, and what's he got? A little 32 auto or something like that. But to the victim, when that gun's in your face and you think you're about to die, it looks like a cannon. It's called extreme focus. We have cases of extreme focus. I could see minute details that would normally go unnoticed. This explains why a lot of bad guys and police officers are shot in their gun hand, gun arm, and gun side of their body, because that's what we're looking at. The last time I trained in Australia, I had a sergeant come up to me before a lecture I was giving. They said, "Hey, you're right, you're absolutely right." And I said, I never get tired of hearing that, but what am I right about? They had a bad guy and two officers get involved in a confrontation. The guy had a machete, and the officers drew and fired, and all the rounds were actually on his left side of the body because that's where he was holding the machete. We focus on that. The bad guys focus on that too, because the source of the bad guy's threat is the officer's gun, or the civilian, justified civilian's gun, homeowner's gun. They're focused on the source of their threat, which is us. And we focus on the source of our threat, which is their gun arm, or machete arm, or knife arm, whatever the case may be. We need to train the way we fight. We need to get away from this target shooting mentality and start point shooting and start combat shooting. Mike Rayburn, CombatGunFighting.com.